This time on Railroad Australia. Cracks appear on the tracks of a multi-billion-dollar iron ore operation.
This one failed.
We'll just have to come back tomorrow and start it all over again.
Jaws snaps.
No, don't stop it. Keep it going.
As James fights to keep his dream alive.
You're putting that on too quick.
And sparks fly.
Yeah.
At the Roundhouse. They are the kings of the Australian outback.
You've got to concentrate all the time.
Some of the biggest trains in the world.
If things go wrong with these things, normally makes a big mess.
On epic journeys.
It's a bomb on wheels.
Through a hostile continent.
Holy crap! Have a look at all this water.
A nation depends on them.
Oh, go, boys, get into it.
And the teams that keep these metal monsters on the tracks. Hauling huge loads of food, freight and mineral riches across incredible distances.
We are out in the middle of nowhere, that's for sure.
Big trains.
It'll be a massive challenge to us.
Big country.
No one's ever done it. We'll see how we go.
The Pilbara, Western Australia. Out here lies one of the world's richest deposits of iron ore. It's vital to the nation's economy. At 3 kilometres in length, the only thing more extreme than the trains carrying the ore is the weather. Vicious storms and searing temperatures play havoc with the railways.
Mainly looking for something that could really do a lot of damage, something that could potentially derail a train.
Today, track inspector Ben Goodrum is checking the line for faults.
We have to do that every 72 hours. We get a lot of heavy rain up here, so we have had issues recently where part of the track's actually washed away. So any time a storm comes through, we have to get straight out there.
This operation belongs to Fortescue Metals Group. With 36,000 tonnes of iron ore on every train, 14 trains running every day, 365 days of the year. Damaged tracks are a constant concern.
Yeah, so the guys picked up ultrasonic defects yesterday, and guys have had to get straight out here this morning to actually cut them out, install a new rail. If it doesn't get done today, they'll actually have to close the track, which costs us a lot of money.
Steve Brockburn is supervising the repairs.
Some of the issues we have here with the rail is that there's been problems with defects, so all we're doing is eliminate them at the moment.
Just one train held up because of track repairs means that millions of dollars worth of ore is going nowhere. This is the team that will fix the problem. 620 kilometres of track connect Fortescue's mining operations to Port Hedland, where the ore is shipped to China and turned into steel.
So currently we're running 14 loaded trains a day, which comes out 500,000 tonnes a day, which is running over this track.
All day, every day. This railway gets a pounding.
Get some really tiny defects. They might only start off at 1 or 2 millimetres, but with that amount of tonnage, they can grow rapidly. It can go from something like that to being broken within a couple of days. So we really need to cut them out as quickly as possible.
And it's the recent storms that also have Ben worried.
We've just had a tropical low come through, and we've got 200 or 300 mil of rain, and then all of a sudden you find that part of the road's gone. So that's the sort of thing that we're up against. Can actually happen if you get enough rain. Can actually, pressure of the water can actually push the ballast out, and then the track will sink. It's a real hazard for us when this happens.
As Ben surveys the damage, back up the line, Steve has a limited window to complete the repairs.
Some of the issues we have here is that machinery failure, the welder itself could break down, the loader could break down. We could run out of temperature. Once it gets past 43 degrees, that's it. We can't carry on.
The race is on, the temperature's rising, and every second counts. In Sydney, New South Wales, after 2 decades of blood, sweat and tears, James Gray has finished restoring his loco.
Oh, here she is. 42101.
A classic 1965 Streamliner.
I just can't believe I've got it running after all of this time.
Now he's going to learn how to drive it.
3 cars to go.
But halfway out of the city, and before he's even touched the controls,
Red light anywhere there, Dave.
he's already upset his instructor.
Try not to blow the whistle in here, mate. Oh, there's just some passengers, just some...
Veteran train driver David Boyd, aka Jaws, doesn't suffer fools.
You know how some people wonder about what people are thinking? They never have that problem with me.
Today, it's David's job to teach James some basics.
On 2, mate. On 2.
And assess whether he's suitable for further driver training.
If he does well today, I'll make sure that the appropriate people are advised and his record is detailed accordingly.
Today, James has a mountain to climb. He and his loco will be put to the test, taking paying passengers on the Cockatoo tourist run, from Sydney to Moss Vale. 160 kilometres of steep climbs and tight corners. As the loco moves out of the city, it's time for James to take the hot seat.
So we're going to do the change over here.
He's now in charge of a 5-carriage, 340-tonne train and the safety of 220 passengers.
We're operating a full-size locomotive on a constantly used network, so we have to be extremely vigilant.
First, he must master the dual braking system.
Giving a 1 notch of dynamic brake there and release your train brake.
There are 2 braking systems on a train, the locomotive's brakes and the air brakes connected to all the carriages.
The braking's challenging for the simple reason that you're trying to coordinate which one you want to use in various situations.
They must be finessed in combination, but applied quickly if needed. Up ahead, a sudden signal change. James needs to slow down and stop.
When you've stopped on your train brake, don't put your engine brake on until your engine has come to a stand.
Let them go?
Yeah, let them go, mate. Yep. That's fine. And we'll stop at the signal until we get 2 green. Let them go. No. Don't put your engine brakes on until your train's come to stand. Now, okay.
Mastering the brakes and his response to signals
We've got 2 greens, let's get into it.
are 2 of the most important techniques James will need to learn.
If I or Dave had a lapse in concentration and potentially run past that signal, then obviously that would set off all the alarms and would create a network incident.
I had a lot of experience early in my career. Unfortunately, James doesn't have the opportunity to do that on a regular basis. So now, as a trainer, I have to try and compress all that experience and knowledge in a manner that James can understand. But it's going to take a little bit of time to get it up here.
Sutherland Station is James's first stop as a driver. He needs to get his loco lined up perfectly and safely for the passengers waiting to board.
Start shutting off at the top of the grade.
No, let it go. The days of being a hobby have come to an end. He's now becoming a professional engine driver, and he'll have to accept the responsibilities that go with that.
Misjudge this stop, and James's driving test could derail. Trainee Roundhouse, New South Wales, a busy hub for loco repair. Halfway between Sydney and Melbourne, it services a major rail corridor.
Let it go now, Blanche, just so it does.
Today, it's at full capacity, with all hands on deck, running diagnostics and making repairs big and small.
So what have we got left? Speedo, defect. We've started to do that.
Getting the job done on time and on budget is the responsibility of supervisor Chris Sweeney.
We've been busy 18 months now, which, yeah, as you can see, there's a variety of locos in it.
It's boss Andrew Clinton's job to crunch the numbers and make a profit.
We're in the business of dealing with breakdowns. It's just a constant juggling. It's all we do. It's what we do well.
But one loco has been left untouched for a month, waiting for parts. its traction motors need their bearings replaced.
We're not getting paid, we're just sitting in the workshop, we get paid when it goes out, so we've got to get it out too for our boss to be happy.
Finally, the bearings have arrived and the job can start. Responsible for servicing the motors is fitter Taylor Horan and apprentice Jake Hersant. Traction motors are attached to the axle and provide the torque required to pull big loads.
With the axle and everything about 3 tonne, so it's not real light.
The new bearings need to fit exactly.
Clearance is too tight, then it'll just chew your bearing out too quick and will cause failure pretty quick.
To measure the gap between the bearings and the axle, Taylor needs to carefully calibrate his equipment. The margin for error is just a fraction of a millimetre.
Know how to use it. Balance that in the centre and try and get that in the centre as well. The axles and traction motors are big, but you've only got a small tolerance, because if you've got a big tolerance and there's that much movement around, it can cause more damage by being too sloppy.
If the boys don't get this right, the bearings could slowly shred the axle and the loco will be straight back into the workshop.
Nice pull right down to the end of the platform. We're just about with it.
On the outskirts of Sydney,
And just let it right in on that.
trainee driver James Gray is trying to stop to pick up passengers while grappling with temperamental brakes.
Release your train brake. Release your train brake. No, keep it going, keep it going. Stop her at the end of the platform. Leave there. Now give her a go. Now give her a go. That'll let it come up. Now let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. That's it. You notice you're still getting that jerk.
Yeah.
You know, it's all part of the learning process.
It was a bit jerky, and I suppose just a bit disappointed in myself. I know I can do better than that.
As the passengers board, there's no time for James to relax.
When you leave here, up to 8 notch, one at a time.
Yep.
And you should be doing around 65, 70k through Loftus.
Okay.
This time, the brakes won't be the only issue.
Right up to 8. The section of track that we're going to travel on today is arguably one of the most exacting sections of track in Australia. And James will have to use all his skill and knowledge that he's acquired thus far to be able to negotiate it safely.
Travelling up into the Illawarra escarpment is a 1 in 30 grade, the steepest anywhere in Australia. Guaranteed to push the 16-cylinder engine to the max.
We get a bit of a run on the flat here before we attack the bank. We're in full throttle now.
The grade starts to bite.
1.5. Don't worry, just keep it going. It's up the hill.
James needs all of his loco's 1,800 horsepower.
I like that it's struggling, it's working hard now, it's working really hard.
Down to a crawl.
I am worried now because if something goes wrong, it's going to go wrong now.
They've made it. 42101 has courageously climbed the mountain, proving how well it's been restored.
I still sometimes pinch myself that it's actually running.
But on the next section of track, James needs to hold his nerve. A narrow bridge with a 100-metre drop.
I've even woken up at night thinking about that bridge on the curve there with about 100 metres tall.
While James can breathe a sigh of relief, it's not for long. He must now stop at a short, isolated platform to pick up some more pressure. A train manager.
James is an acting driver. He's on this trip doing route knowledge, so he knows
how to drive the engine, what speeds to go.
Right one, James. I'll give you some instructions there. Let it shut her off.
What I'm doing a safety audit.
Finessing the brakes to line up the carriages will be a big test.
I'd give it a £7 now. Don't overcook it. That'll do, don't overcook it. Good. Is he on the platform yet? Okay, now release your brakes. And listen for this now, he's going to call you, but he's going to line up those doors.
Half the carriage tank.
Half the carriage. Red light. Yep. That's it. That'll do. You're putting that on too quick. Oh, was I? Oh, yep.
Come back a little bit, we're just a little bit too far.
After waiting a month for them, Taylor and Jake are about to find out if the new bearings are the right fit for the traction motor overhaul.
Both bearings measured to the right specs, so it should be right to throw the axle in and put it all together now.
For fitter Taylor, this is one of the biggest jobs he's had to tackle.
Right, you can control the crane. You have to roll this in and then lower this down onto it. Right, lower it down. That's it.
In the train world, almost everything is big. Assembled, the axle and traction motor weighs in at a hefty 3.5 tonnes.
We've got the overhead crane to pick up the gear case seals, and then we go with 2 big rams. You won't find big rams like that in many garages, no.
While they might be large and heavy, the parts are also surprisingly delicate.
Want me to help you? The bearings are all white metal and brass. They're all soft and doesn't take much of a knock on them to wreck them, and then once you wreck them, it takes a lot of filing out to get them smooth, and even the axles are easy to damage. I'll guide this down. You just hold on to this. But you got to keep an eye on the game. So then you do put everything back together in the right spot and all that, otherwise things do go wrong, and they do go wrong in a big way if they do. Come on, old mate, give me a hand. Stand there and watch me.
Next, carefully manoeuvre the motor onto the lift.
There we go, we're on the track now.
The Roundhouse is uniquely designed with a subterranean rail line servicing the repair bays from beneath. From there, the difficult task of inserting the motor back into the loco will begin.
You got to make sure the wheels and everything are sitting square, and the trash motor is sitting square as well. If it's too far forward, too far back, and they won't line up if they're too far to one side. So it is pretty hard to try and line them up.
What can actually happen if you get enough water? It can actually run through and it can wash all the ballast out of the track.
In iron ore country, Track Inspector Ben is checking the line for storm damage.
We'll just put out some road cones. It's a bit of a hazard here. If someone's coming down here at speed, it's going to throw them around, so we'll just cone it off and we'll let the civil guys know that they've got a big hole in the road.
Luckily, it's only the service road that suffered from the storm. The ballast stabilising the track has avoided any damage. Ben will now move on to the tracks. To avoid an accident, it's important Control knows exactly where he is.
So he does just drop the track leads down. What these do is there's a magnet on each side, and we drop these on the rail. It'll actually confirm our location. We'll know pretty much exactly where we are, and just to make sure that we're on the right track, because we've got 2 tracks here.
He'll be sharing the rail network with 36,000-tonne ore trains in his 2-tonne car. Time for a transformation. This is a high rail vehicle.
I'll give you a call once I'm at a stand. East Turner Bypass SLB.
It has specially designed cameras and computer systems that can detect rail damage as well as buckling and twisting in the line.
We're looking at anything that could present a hazard to a train. It can also pick up things by feel, so it can sense movement in the vehicle or a bang if we were to run over a broken rail. So we're looking for all kinds of sorts of things at the same time.
50 metres down, 100 kilometres to go. Back up the line, Steve's crew are racing against the clock and the thermometer to repair 4 fractures already detected.
We usually get 90 minutes to do the job for like a single defect. Today we're going to go for 4. So hopefully we can do it within the 90 minutes.
The rail is already measuring 38 degrees. If it gets to 43, the new welds won't hold.
We know by 9, 10 o'clock that day it's going to be way past 43 degrees then.
If it gets too hot, you could get heat kicks with the rail, and that's when the rail jumps out because it grows. So if we can beat the temperature, we can do as much as we can.
It's a big challenge.
A lot of things can go wrong, have failed welds, the machines break down itself. There's always pressure on because you don't want to hold the trains up, that's for sure.
The first stage is cutting through the line, but it's not that simple.
Where it's marked to be cut, there needs to be dug out. So the rail saw blade can actually fit down. You need to get the rail saw in there and cut down through the foot of the rail.
Once the line is cut, Rod uses the loader to lift the new piece of track into place, closing the gap.
Because I'm moving rail here, but 75 metres down track, someone could be stepping on the rail, so I just got to be vigilant. And I've got a spotter with me the whole time.
But as the work gets going, the mercury keeps rising.
Once it gets over 40, then you start feeling it, that's for sure. But that's the Pilbara.
If the track temperature reaches 43 degrees C, the new welds won't hold, leaving the fully loaded ore trains with nowhere to go.
That's it, that'll do. You're putting that on too quick.
Oh, was I? Oh.
Yeah.
Come back a little bit, we're just a little bit too fast.
Wannabe train driver James has overshot the platform right in front of a safety auditor. Stopping smoothly, safely and in the right position is crucial.
Being able to manipulate the brake valve in such a way that it doesn't jerk the train and injure somebody. So on passenger trains, it's extremely important that we can master that technique. The only mistake you're making when you're applying your brakes, when you're nearly at a stop, you're going to put your independent on. Don't do that.
Oh, okay.
Till...
I've seen other people do that, so I'll probably follow the
Once you've stopped, you can do that.
Yeah.
But until your engine actually stops, if you don't, your train's going to punch into the back of your engine.
Yeah, punch up there.
Instructor David now wants James to reverse it back on his own.
A little bit anxious. I've moved trains around by myself in yards before, but they've clearly got no passengers on them and they're also within the confines of a yard. So we're out on the main line and this is serious business out here. Other trains using
James, right to come back, mate, thanks.
Okay, Bruce, right to come back.
James's nerves are showing.
Here we go.
He's already made a number of mistakes. If he can't bring the train to a halt in the right position, David may not recommend him for the next stage of training.
Just got to concentrate here, so I don't want to go any further than I have to. Is that okay, Bruce?
I think, mate.
Very good. Very good. Got to concentrate.
It's a boost for James, but the pressure's back on. The safety auditor he's picked up, John Brown, is also a senior manager at their rail restoration club.
Well, I did the right thing there, though, Dave, putting the brakes straight into emergency when I saw it.
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
There's your level crossing. So what's happening now?
So we're going to go back into power and go up the hill?
Absolutely, but just watch your speed. You might need you. So start to move her along now to pick her up. Don't let her lose too much pace.
As they head across the ridge line, it becomes clear there's a good reason for David's incredibly high standards. This terrain can be deadly.
In 1998, there was a mudslide, and they run into it with the locomotive. They didn't know it was there, and the mud came through the windows and basically drowned them. They were smothered to death. No matter how alert you are, you've always got those challenges out there. Death rides the rails. You've just got to be extremely careful all the time.
It's the final stop on the way out to Mossvale. James's last chance to get it right.
You'll see the one on the signal. Yeah, shut her off there, mate. Right, now I'll give a 7 pound there and release your engine brakes and just dribble down on it. Now we're going to stop. and just put the front door on the platform. We don't want passengers starting to get off.
No.
Righto, bring it down, mate. Bring it down. Put the front engine on.
1.5.
1.5, because it's not a wheelbarrow, mate.
Steady.
Steady. Yeah, just let it ride in on that. Don't stop it. Keep it going, James. Keep it going. Oh, James, come on.
Carriage?
No, what's it? A carriage length to go.
What we're doing is removing defect welds from when they did construction.
In searing heat, the Fortescue maintenance crew are halfway through their limited window to fix 4 track defects.
Main dangers we have here are train movements and then dehydration's a big one up here. Boys aren't used to the heat.
They need to work fast, but safely.
One track's being closed by train control and the other one's live. Basically, I'm on the live track to make sure that no one is walking from the track that's been closed down to the live track.
The team have finished cutting the defects out of the rail and new track has been laid. Now it's time for the welding. And with steel this thick, they're going to need a big flash butt welder.
A lot of things can go wrong, like the flash butt welder, that could have failed welds, so that can slow us down. The rail can get too hot, and so we can't weld anymore.
The welding machine is completely enclosed, protecting workers from dangerous flare and sparks and preventing the threat of wildfire. Meanwhile, further down the line, Track Inspector Ben Goodrum is arriving at an area that sees serious wear and tear.
So what we do when we come to a set of points is we have a good walk through it. It's just a visual inspection. We're just making sure there's no broken bolts, still got reasonable ballast condition, and we're just checking to make sure there's not excessive steel flow on here. With 500,000 tonnes a day, these things do wear pretty quickly, but this one's in pretty good condition, so we've got no issues here.
Back at the repair job, the welding's done. But the joins need to be inspected. They need to cope with 36,000 tonnes of train 14 times a day, every day. This time, there's a problem.
This one failed. We have to cut this out.
We just had a weld fail with a flash butt. There's a computer on it, and the computer said no. So now we've got to cut it out and re-weld it. So now that's put us back in schedule.
The team's window to finish the job is almost up. Trains need to be redirected back onto the line. Fortescue can't have them held up any longer.
I wish the instructions would have been better there. I just couldn't stop the day, because I can't see.
In country New South Wales, tensions between student and instructor are rising.
James was a little over anxious to pull the train up at the appropriate spot. And these are the critical things that James is still learning.
James is finding it hard to please his instructor, the man who will decide his fate.
Okay, ease off, please.
Copy that.
Reassurance comes from an unexpected quarter. Train manager John.
With David talking to you down there and going through the exercise, you must always realise that David's bark is worse than his bite.
No, thank you.
James now faces his biggest challenge so far. Going back down the mountain.
And let it come up to about 50, mate. Starting to pick up a little bit of speed. If you don't control the train in the proper manner, you just won't stop it until you derail.
In January 2003, a train hit the curve at high speed, derailing and killing 7 people, including the driver.
It's just keeping the train in check and making sure we don't exceed track speed limit.
James must ride the dynamic brake.
2,
all the way.
I've got to keep concentrating on it because even if I lapse 10 seconds, I'll find it's 5 kilometres faster than what I thought it was.
Every extra kilometre per hour of momentum counts on this treacherous downhill track.
Don't hesitate with it, bring it around. A little bit of up and down, and you just got to try and let the speed of the train and the grades take the sting out of it. That's it.
James has safely negotiated his train and passengers down the mountain.
See how it picked up the speed there on that little bit of undulating grade there?
Yeah, I did, Jaws.
Yeah, righto, choo-choo.
So my nickname at Enfield when I was a tradesman at Enfield Dealing, back in the 1990s, my nickname was Choo Choo, because I was the only person out of 400 in the depot that had a Choo Choo.
Reaching the flat terrain towards suburban Sydney, James Choo Choo Gray can finally enjoy his first driving experience.
Amazing feeling when you're sitting in the driver's seat and you're driving your own locomotive that you've spent all that time working on. The sound of this 16-cylinder engine barking its head off and heating up the track. It's just the ultimate kid's toy in a man's world.
On the last stretch into busy Sydney, David takes over once more.
Tell you, I was just thinking of you, James. There used to be a used car place here.
Yeah.
And on the roof, they had a sign, "You'll never own a train."
You'll never own a train. Well.
There you go.
There you go. Well, I proved that wrong, didn't I?
You proved that wrong?
I own a train, my friend.
Yeah.
After a grueling run, Streamliner 42101 heads back into the shed. James must now wait for David's deliberations on his future as a train driver.
Still definitely want to do this as a career and become a fully qualified train driver.
Has he got what it takes?
All done for the day. How'd I go, Dave?
You need to focus on your train management, in particular on the journey out. You're a little bit overcautious. You did extremely well coming home, and I'd be happy to recommend you to any potential employer.
All right then, no worries.
All right, see you, buddy.
The dreams come true, so I'll be a second driver and hopefully with the view to eventually get through and become a full driver. Another day over.
After 20 years of effort, his dream is coming true. For James, tomorrow is the first day of the rest of his life driving trains. At the Trainee workshop, Taylor and Jake have taken a 3.5-ton traction motor as far as they can. They need more muscle. It arrives in the form of supervisor Chris Sweeney.
You right to go up? You right, Hor?
Yeah, can you grab the control for us? Hopefully we should be lined up all right. I got it roughly in the middle.
With the traction motor in the pit, it's now directly beneath the loco. Next step, lift all 3.5 tons into place. It must be millimetre perfect.
Well, it looks like we've gone too far, maybe.
That'll be right, and might be.
Yeah.
Hold on, work. We can probably take the clamps off now, Jake.
The news is good. The first traction motor fits. But for the second, they'll have to move the loco.
We've got to pull this RL out, turn around so you can get number 4 axle over the drop pit so you can put the new traction motor underneath it.
This is what makes a rail roundhouse so unique. Designed with a central turntable, it's the best way to move locomotives from bay to bay. A small but powerful shunting unit moves the loco into position. The loco is turned around on the table so the second motor can be installed. It must once again be perfectly lined up over the traction motor below.
So it's got to be smack bang in the middle. It just makes it for a pain in the if it's not lined up properly in the first place. Hopefully it all goes to plan like the first one did.
Taylor gets the locomotive ready for the traction motor replacement.
You want to put your spring stoppers in now? I'll just let everything else sit.
But suddenly, he spots a problem that stops the job.
Cracks in the wear plates, so we've got to get them welded back up before we can get further.
So we've just had a failed weld. The actual computer said it's a failed weld.
The track maintenance team have less than 15 minutes before they're due to hand the line back to the trains.
So now we're in a hurry to try and get the track closed up.
So what we've got to do is the worksite supervisor is going to try and call up control, see if we can get an extension on our window.
While the team hope for the best, they must plan for the worst.
The boys are getting clamps and G-clamps to plate it up. In case we don't get the extension, we'll just get a speed restriction on and let the trains through and then come back tomorrow, start it all over again.
The crew are needed for urgent repairs on other parts of the track. They need to avoid the job spilling over into the next day. Just down the line, there's better news for Ben.
Okay, so we've now travelled over 100 kilometres for today on high rail, and the rest of the track's looking great. No real issues out there now. And just ahead of us, this is our point where we'll be taking off. Yeah, Gary, now off track and clear from 35.7.
Off and clear, thank you, controller.
It's job done for Ben. But up ahead, the repair team are trying to finish the job and get the line open.
Just going to go and check it out.
They have news from the controller.
The supervisor has actually called up control and asked for another 15-minute extension to be able to do the job, and he's allowed that for us, so it's good.
The race is on to complete the welding. Once the temperature of the track hits 43 degrees, the job will be shut down.
Like at the moment, it could be like 37 degrees ambient, but the rail itself could be 45, 46 degrees, and it's too hot for us to weld.
The flash butt welder is back on track. The failed weld has been cut out and a new section of track laid.
Basically, this is the final stage. We've just done the closure weld.
The weld's done, but it still needs to be inspected, and their time extension is almost up.
Now we just wait for the weld testers to test them.
So we're searching for indications inside the weld. It's like the ultrasound of a baby. So we're looking inside the weld using these probes. I was trying to review now the data.
Success, but the job's not over yet. The weld needs to be smoothed out for the trains to pass over it safely, and the ballast needs to be replaced.
The ballast that keeps the track in place. Everything is important in the railways if it keeps the train on track.
Finally, with just minutes to spare, 4 track faults replaced with the temperature pushing 40 degrees.
Glad it went well. We got the defect out. That's our day. Time for some smoko.
Did have a failed weld, so that held us up for a little bit, but we managed to get through it. We get it done, so it's all good, man.
The trains can now get back on track, delivering iron ore to port and the rest of the world.
Oh, that's us. Ready to go on for the next job.
Now we'll go prep up another one. Do it all again tomorrow.
The repair of the Roundhouse's longest resident patient has just hit a snag. Its traction motor can't be refitted. There's a new problem.
We've got cracks in the wear plates, so we've got to get that welder back up before we can go any further. I'm going to check the other side, but that one's all right. That one's pretty loose. Yeah, everything's out ready. He's just got to grab the welder and a grinder, and then he's right, yeah.
But a simple welding job on one of these locos has hidden dangers.
Way of welding, you got a chance of shorting the computers out and blowing the computers up, which runs into thousands of dollars if you do that.
To prevent any damage, all of the onboard computers need to be disabled. The man for the job, 19-year-old apprentice Ethan Sainsbury.
Just pull them out. I don't know why. Just got told to do it.
Usually one simple task can lead to a much harder task. We really don't need too much more work than what we've already got.
Many of the screws are old and cross-threaded, making it hard to remove the boards and shut the computers down. It's more delays for a loco that's already been off the tracks for a month.
A little bit of pressure on me to do this as quickly as possible.
With the computers offline, the welding can begin. But below, there's another danger.
They had to have someone down the bottom on fire watch because of the oil and stuff that gets dropped down the bottom.
Highly combustible substances like oil, grease and diesel collect in the pit. With jobs like these, fire is a constant hazard.
It can be a big deal if it's the wrong stuff catches the light. It can take off, but just keep an eye on it. Hard up, Marcus. Yeah. Done. I better go and find some more workers. Everyone's left me again.
Taylor needs the extra muscle to push the 3.5 tonne replacement traction motor into position.
Hey guys, this is just football training. Everyone don't know how to play football. Since you're here, Ethan, you might as well give us a hand to line everything up. Hopefully this thing lines up.
Now, the moment of truth. Get this wrong and it'll be an expensive fix.
All right, box is over.
Righto, if that one's in.
Axle boxes look like they're lining up all right.
Yeah.
Your side's pretty sweet still, mate. Right to come up?
Yeah. So just grab your torch on your phone, Hoof. Don't put your fingers anywhere near that, but have a look as they go up. You just want them to stay straight.
Suddenly, the new motor hits a snag.
I don't know if it's a spring not going in or if it's hitting on the...
What's going on there, Jake?
Like that, it's just caught. It's either that getting caught or it's getting caught there, and it's just that side's still going up, this side's stopping.
Because it's all right this side, I don't know what's like the other end.
Yeah, so it's cropped off on the other side. Oh, it will hit, but it hasn't got there yet. I've got to try and get the bar in behind to free like that gap.
Yeah, it's not left from the other side, and then where you are swinging back.
Oh, I've got it anyway.
You got it?
Yeah.
There we go.
Just hold on. Yeah, it'll miss it now for sure.
All right, we'll go up a bit.
There we go.
Finally, the traction motors are back in place.
Oh, there's no problem there now, we're all right, we're sweet. We just had the axle boxes weren't quite pushed on far enough. We get around it, it's all right now.
After a month in the shop, this loco is ready to get back on track.
Oh, it's a good feeling when the loco does go out after you do a job to it. Customer's happy, the boss is getting paid. It's all good.
At the Roundhouse, another sick bay is free for the next engine in need.